Hey there, this is Quinn James, and tonight my opponent's going to be Andy Saunders, who is a strong player from Canada who just recently broke 1700 for the first time. I'm not going to be able to play off this cue right here. This is seeming like it's worth the point sacrifice. Not much else is. There's moved as well. That actually scores the same amount of points and does leave a slightly better leave, perhaps. QD does have the virtue of drawing into Kate and Kadi, but QR is probably equal or better. The thing that's making me not want to play moved, though, is the back hooks here, A moved and E moved, that are pretty easy to hit for high scoring bingos, sixes that can get something on a double letter. And so I think I'm going to play Vomer just to stop that. It also makes it a little bit harder to overlap. Although if I wanted to be hyper defensive against overlaps, I'd play Vomer 8H, and that would really make it tough to bingo against, but that would be a significant point sacrifice, and I don't think worth doing at this point. Okay, so I've drawn the X. Right now, it looks like I may be stuck with this Q for another turn, but if I can score, then that might not be so bad. A few different options. This one looks like the strongest one right now, just because it sets up QAT at 10D. Which isn't going to be like a tremendously high scoring spot for that, but in the absence of, like if Andy exchanges or something, in the absence of anything else where my cue could go, I do want to make a play preferentially that will increase my chances of playing this cue off next turn. Because as long as it's in my rack, it's going to be an impediment to bingo. Okay, he plays Wool, the anagram of Dowel, and that preserves my high scoring X spots, but it also gives me this, which is almost as much as the X spot, and dumps the Q instead of the X. I think it's clearly better than any of the X plays. I don't normally play turns that fast, but hey, if I can explain why it's that good that fast, then it's probably worth playing that fast. Now, okay, that may not be true. I've seen some players play the first bingo they see and justify it as it doesn't look like I'm going to see anything better and play it in 30 seconds, while all the while I'm screaming at the monitor going, "You missed a play for 15 points more over in the other corner." So yeah, I try and take my time, but that was a situation where I definitely wasn't going to bingo. It was early in the game. There were relatively fewer spots to consider. You know, it's all variants of things that sort of overlap with Wex, and it was just obvious that there was nothing that was going to be as good as getting 41 and getting rid of the Q. Even though it devalues the X, it's still just clearly worth doing. So I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do here. I've got a bunch of plays that Dexy could go down here, I guess. I was thinking Deoxy at first, but that's not as good as Dexy. The B and the K aren't too strong. can try and get rid of them with something like this. Yeah, it gets rid of the B and scores pretty well. Keeps the K and the X. I'm not sure that's as good as Dexy. Though after a play like that, well, it makes me want to be more defensive. So let's look at Dexy versus some of these other plays. Dexy does leave this O open. I don't really love that. It doesn't really give any scoring spots, but I'm expecting a bingo after what? I'm expecting that Andy's close to a bingo, so I'm more concerned about blocking bingos. Bingos are going to be tough to play down here because they have to start like IO, something like IO knowns or IA, which I'm not sure even starts anything. Yeah, stuff like IO knowns is just about all you could do, or like UAKARIS or something, unless that Andy knows that Tor takes an S, which I'm not confident that he does, and even then it's going to be hard to play bingos. Play like Body is also very anti-bingo, but the downside of that is that it preserves this S hook for Wold, and that's just so much better than this O up here that I think it's Dexy is the play. I'm only going to spend a little bit of time looking to make sure I'm not missing like something that's 55 or something. This would be the highest scoring thing to go here. The K, you can't really... I think it's going to be Dexy. I'm drinking an organic energy drink. It tastes exactly like you'd expect an organic energy drink to taste. It's fine. I don't know if I'll buy it again or not. Okay, so I'm immediately seeing B-Took up here. Andy's forked, so I'm going to give up I'm going to give up bingos, I think, whatever I do, because there's no way of blocking both this and down here, because Wad takes no hooks to the left. B-Took takes the more dangerous line. Downside is it does open another thing because KI takes an S to the left, but it's the same hook. It's the same S hook as elsewhere. I don't think I'm going to see anything better. None of the other things I could put here except for the T are more defensive, and so I'll look for a second for anything that goes to the T. And I'm not seeing it, so I think B-Took is correct. And all of a sudden I'm sitting here up 95 without a bingo. Which is a good place to be because I feel like I'm going to get hit with one this turn, and if not this turn, next turn. I'm honestly surprised it hasn't already happened. Just a little bit. Like, I'd say it was 50-50 last turn. He might have had something with the O, just considering how blatantly he fished and blatantly he fished. And this time I really couldn't stop everything. So if he's sitting with a really good rack, then it's just going to be bingo. Like, unless it's like a rack that is really bingo prone but doesn't have an S. But in that situation, I wouldn't have played Iwi, I don't think. I thought it would have been really hard pressed to play Iwi without holding an S. So I'm just assuming he holds an S. And that's sort of, affecting whatever I might do next turn. I would love to take out one or both of these S spots, because I know he's sitting on an S. I would put it at about 90% that he's sitting on an S. And the only reason it's not, close to 100 is there's a possibility that Iwi was just some sort of panic play, based on couldn't see anywhere else to, wanted to dump 2 eyes and couldn't see anywhere else, and just decided to open this one lane and maybe feint me and try and trick me into thinking that he has an S, although that wouldn't in any way help him, because he doesn't want me to think I have an S. He doesn't want me to think he has an S if he doesn't have an S. Not with me having a lead, because it's going to make me want to play defensive, and that's not, like, even more than I ordinarily would, and that's not what he wants me to do, especially if he's sitting there with no S. So yeah, Iwi, and I still think that he has an S, and he's probably sitting there with other eyes too. Pool takes an I and an S, I believe, and an L, and a K, and does it take anything else? A P, a U? I'm actually feeling that it takes a U as well, and a Y, so it actually takes more than you'd think. So this is actually, it does block this hook, this key. This is actually, like, this is some stuff right here. A lot of things could go here. The flip side of that is that if they go there, I probably get a pretty big response on the O column. I'd rather bingo hooking pull than a bingo through this L or a bingo through this O. Though I think a bingo hooking pull is the most likely of all of those. My problem is that I'm sitting here with Regma plus 2 Rs and that I don't really see what to even do. I was looking mostly for overlaps, and most of them don't really work. I would like to a couple of R's, but this is horrible. This is horrible as well. I guess there's this Armor Mirror Mora. Gives another S hook just for no reason. I'm not sure I want to do that. I'm not sure I want to increase the flexibility of this S. Well, wait a second though. Mora, well, it only increases the flexibility of the S by 1 square versus pull hooks, but also Bingo's hooking Mora will not have as much counterplay, and I'm also giving an A. Yeah. Not really what I want to do. I'm not really feeling this being good. This is good, but this is pretty user-friendly. This can score. I'd want to make a play like this if I was blocking multiple spots, but there's just the one. So it's not a great return on investment. I might as well just leave the thing there if I'm going to be doing things like larger. Since Pule takes an E, I guess I could look for things, but Gamer Marge Regma don't go in the places that I would like them to go here. I don't really want to play this. Regar, Rager. I don't want to play those either. Just fishing off 2 R's or 2 R's and a G or 2 R's and an M. Or even exchanging them might not be so bad. I'm going to play Mora. I think what it does to the board is pretty neutral. And their leave is fine, and I'm not seeing anything that really looks better than that. So I'll just play that. Now, I'm playing that, but I'm absolutely less than thrilled about it. Not so much because of what just happened here, because there was little I could do about that. But just I really wanted to close something. And that didn't really happen. Okay, so now I have to figure out whether like this is good or this is good, because those would both help me out a lot. Or even something like, no, I think this is good actually. Like Beggar Belief. This is good. So I've got a 92-point play sitting here, so I just got to decide if the 176 ones are good. ABEGR is Barge, Vigar, Grabe. And I think that's it. Because I think I've been confused before thinking rebag was a word, but that it's actually just debag. Badge, begad, debag. So debag is a word, but that doesn't mean debagger is a word. Debugger is a word. That's not what I meant. That's not what I have. I can't put anything here, so that means that this overlap isn't going to work for me. And that's the only thing I see on this board that would score more than Beggared. I am just going to go ahead and pull the trigger on Beggared. It gives me a 100-point lead. It's perfectly fine. If one of the 176 words turns out to be valid, then I've learned something new today. But just based on where I am, I'm just going to play Beggared. And again, because Beggared Belief, I'm virtually certain that this has to be in. And Andy agrees, doesn't challenge. Score's 53, but I have a 42-point response that can go down. Lab obviously takes an S. Takes Fs, which are out. Which could score. I don't really want to leave that. I'm looking real quick for bingos. I feel like there might actually be an 8 in this, but it's not quite Picayune and things like that. I don't think that, if there is an 8, I don't think it's available. And this is just so straightforward. Like, I hate to be rushing all these plays, but considering how fast Andy is playing, I feel like I kind of have to not spend 3 minutes on every turn if I'm going to have enough time for a possible endgame. And this is so straightforward. I'm just going to play it. I guess there's also the possibility that Andy could challenge YER, which is new, but I'm guessing he probably is up on those. Okay, I had to think about that one actually for a second. It is good. It's like an Indian boat or boat captain or something to do with Indian boats, and it's also spelled Nautch. So that's in. And Andy's keeping pace just fine right now. I have this. I have this. I do not think I have this because I don't think that this is the 4. I always think it is, but it's not, I'm pretty sure. I'm looking for things that I could do to this H, because I'm not loving this H being out. Other than like playing this, which I think is terrible, even though it sets up my jupe, but that's probably going to get taken. Like playing punts and leaving Jew just to set this up. Even I think Andy might bingo and he just drew 5 fresh dials, so I can't count on that. It's just not worth it, I don't think. On the other hand, I don't think doing this is worth it either, just because it gives up so many potential points if there is a bingo, that this would score a lot more than other bingos, especially if it hooks pulp. An S and there are 3 S's out could underlap this for a ton. Jute seems safer. Just go ahead and dump those tiles, keep decently. Well, if it's between punts and Jute, I'm actually getting more. I'm getting more enamored by punts. It does block this H more than Jute. And I was just telling Kenji the other day that I'm trying to make less setups, and this is definitely like a blatant setup. It's not what I would normally do here, but I just... if I'm only sacrificing 4 points to do this, I'm just going to do this. Okay, and I draw the blank, so the setup doesn't really end up mattering that much. I do have my jupe for 63, and if that stays available, it's probably what's gonna go down. But I think I have like bingos. I think this is a thing. In fact, I'm almost certain that's a thing. I might have something to this L. I have this, I think. Oh, that scores more here anyway. I have plays over here. Oh god, I didn't even see plays over here last turn because I didn't have that I on this rack. But now that I have drawn into an I, that was even more reason not to play the J, because now I have J plays over here for 1 billion points too. So I wasn't even thinking that when I made that setup. Or this is also a backup too, but there's no scenario in which I play that. Not anymore. In fact, I don't know if there's any scenario where I play Jin. It gives so much back, and I can just bingo and give back the same amount plus take 30 extra points. So yeah, Jin is not looking too good for me right now. Okay, and Andy chooses to block the setup, only scoring 7 points to do so, which is interesting. As if he was sitting on vowels, he probably would have just taken the setup for himself, which is kind of making me wonder if I should play something like Jin. Just because it's possible that he might not be able to take advantage of that. On the other hand, Fud could be a partial fish that also happens to block, so I don't know if I should count on that. Interesting. Be nice if I had something through this L. It's not quite Julienne's. It's not how you spell that. Also be nice if I had like a bingo that starts JI. I'll take a second to look for one of those. I don't see one. So what were my choices here? Junkies here. Actually, you know what? This is. I know this is like 40 over here. I don't care. This is definitely better than playing for like 69. Unless there's something. Well, the other one was bungees, and that also scores. But this is actually. I actually disprefer really opening this. I think, especially with all these eyes out. The most likely vowel Andy is gonna have right now is an I, so like that helps junkies a little bit, because yeah, he's probably gonna be able to play something over here, but it's gonna score less than after bungees, because he's not gonna get this E doubled. Whatever, a consonant plus this E, which could be a really significant difference. And also, for junkies, one person is going to play over here, one person is going to play over here. And most of the time, what that's going to do is allow me to, if he bingos, then I can score and keep pace. If he scores over here, I can score over here and semi-block. Most of the time. So I think I'm playing this. Oof. Not what I wanted to see, but I do still have this available. Despite leaving 4 eyes, if it stays available, it could end up being correct, amazingly enough. But it won't be correct actually in all situations. This could be correct in some situations. I believe this is a thing. It would also be spelled with a Y, S-Y-P-E. Okay, an exchange is one situation where I might not want to play OS. IO is actually a possibility here, but then that would leave me unable to play OS next turn. Ideally, it would be something that preserves the possibilities of Sipe and OS next turn. So perhaps a play like C for 2 is actually not ridiculous, considering that Andy is fishing right now. I can't believe I'm considering C for 2 points when I have 40-point plays. The downside to this is that Andy could bingo through this I, and I would have just completely wasted a turn. But even if that happens, I still get to play Ostersipe. And this makes everything less user-friendly. I'm playing C for 2 points. Have fun with that. Enjoy your C for 2 points. He's gonna sit. Would love to see his face right now, trying to make out what I'm doing. If it matters to him, he'll probably be incorrectly inferring that I don't have Os. So Andy bingos, which is fine. He's probably incorrectly interfering that I don't have Os, but or actually 1 is stronger now because I've drawn that in. But now it's in a situation, you see all these, the amount of I's, there's only 1 I left in the bag now. Some E's, but a bunch of A's and O's. So Andy can play here now. So I have to take it. I really have to take it. And I managed to draw Sipe again, which is something. Andy bingos again, which really doesn't matter, I don't think. Unless Sipe turns out to be phony, in which case maybe he can pull something off. So maybe I shouldn't play it after all, because I'm not 100% on it. What else is available? Hoas. I was looking for something to play Shiai, which I think is a thing, but it's not. I'm not seeing it. Various things I can do with this H. I need to know whether Andy can play out. Is there spots for like Fovea? No, I don't think so. Favor. Oh, Favor. He can play Favor here. If there's only 1 outplay, I can block the outplay. And then do silly crap after that. I think there actually is only 1 outplay. Favor over here. So the question is, do I want to preserve Sipe? Do I want to preserve Sipe and High? Probably not, because Andy's probably going to be able to out into me anyway. So there's probably no point in preserving both of them. So the question is, which one should I preserve? And the H plays in more spots, but the S is less flexible for me right now. I'm trying to figure out a spot. I have things like this, which I think actually does accomplish blocking the spot. If Sipe gets blocked, then this S doesn't score that much, but that's fine. I mean, I'm winning this game regardless. Actually, at this point, even if Sipe gets challenged off and I'm wrong about it being a word, then I'm still winning the game, so it's fine. So C for 2 points turned out to be not just a wasted turn, but I think actually giving him a bingo that he didn't have anywhere else. GilnStt. Did that play anywhere else that turn? I don't think it did, actually. So that was pretty much a worst case scenario. But there were a lot of racks where it could have stopped any bingos as well. And and if that had happened, then I'd be laughing forever. But even with it not working, and he's since they're in bingos twice, and I'm still going to win this game. So it's the kind of situation where doing something that might be a little silly, that might be quite risky and could backfire, could be worth trying. You get some feedback. You learn some stuff about doing weird stuff like that. No real regrets about that, actually. Okay. Don't know what he's doing there. Gives Yvette, and I mean, I'm just playing Sipe. And we'll find out if Sipe is a word. Okay. So he was just dumping the V so I could play this, and was assuming I wouldn't see it or care, which was correct. So, a good game. Little bit of a strange one, a little bit of some weird twists and turns, but a fun game, a really fun game. So I'll take a look back, and there's probably were a lot of plays that I made that were maybe suboptimal, and maybe some of those were even wrong. They're not the same thing. Suboptimal and wrong. Because depending on who you're playing, sometimes the suboptimal, and depending on the psychological flow of the game, sometimes suboptimal is right. I felt like if C ended up blocking a bingo, then that would just completely tilt Andy. So that's part of the reason why I did it. There were times in game when it didn't seem to want to give me vowels. Well, that happens. That's Scrabble. Like you're nah. That's just Scrabble. Okay, so I'm seeing the Iwi rack. And he was holding dupe eyes and was holding that S. Not 3 eyes though, just 2. So, other potential options for him that turn. Wally or Whale, but Wally is better for him. XI actually would have been pretty strong as well. Planes is definitely a better thing to leave than plans, and XI is actually tough to block. Even if I wanted to sit here and block it, I don't know if I could. It would really depend on me having the exact right dials to do it. But Iwi was a pretty strong play. I think it might not have been the best one for him. This one, it's recommending Kembo that puts that O here, which is bad, and yeah, a bunch of things that kind of just positionally. B-Took was the only 6 that goes over here. So. N2 rearm. Yeah, oh, Pula. Okay, yeah. I missed Pula, I think. I don't know if Pula was one of the things that I mentioned when I was going through all these. I don't think it was. I think I just missed Pula. And that probably, when I was considering, that probably would have induced me to play rearm if I saw it. But I saw a bunch of all these other plays and didn't want to do them. And Boranes, yeah. Because of Pula, it also plays here, so. Biggard was, in fact, the only 8 here. Debagger and Baggard are not words. So. And I'm not noticing Andy's racks being, like, completely terrible. Like, yeah, you probably, keeping GT not necessarily the best thing, but you probably do expect to draw some vowels to that. And so I guess this is where this was kind of an unfortunate draw for him, but not really mid game, more late game. 24 in the bag is when that happened. And I really don't know if FUD was... Well, yeah, I mean... Yeah, punts was a setup. Yeah, he blocked the setup, but... He also left... Well, first of all, why not Fug? Is there any J play that plays after Fug? I don't think so. Though I think it accomplishes the same things as FUD, but that actually would have been better for him. Just because the G is so much worse than the D. Alright, yeah, they wanted me to play Jin. Again, because I thought FUD could be a fish, could indicate just being close to a bingo, and so I was afraid of a big play over there, which could have easily, especially if it started with like Blink M or, well, I guess I didn't really think about that. It would have to be Blink M or Blank P for ISO, MISO, and PISO. It's still a pretty user-friendly lane, but I guess I kind of left another one anyway. I think what I was thinking was I just wanted to take the points. And maybe what I should have done here was actually to change and keep EIOS or something, so I could still have SIPE and DOS. That actually might be better than either C for 2 points or actually caching in SIPE and DOS. I think, yeah, exchange III actually is pretty strong here. I cache, I Heishi. Okay, I didn't know that one. Would have been 38. Leave AI. Go out in the next turn. Well, I wouldn't go out the next turn because it would not block favor. So I ended up getting 58 points from my plays, and Andy got an extra 14 from Vets, and then 26 from Folk. But wouldn't have been able to get that 26 from Folk by going out in one turn. Would have just had to play favor for face value. So I think the way that math works is that Heishi is actually better than Ahi. But yeah, I didn't know that play, so based on what I knew, I didn't want to play Sela and leave III. That wouldn't really help. Because if I'm playing something, I want it to either be out in 2 or have that site for 35 to make up for not having out in 2. Okay, so thanks for listening. This was a lot of fun, as always, and I will see you all again very soon.